Is the MLS expanding too fast? So obviously they started in, I think it was 96, and they only had 10 teams. And now we're in 2017. They have 22 teams now, and they're adding 2 more in the next 2 years. Is that too fast of an expansion? What are we looking for? From the MLS, they stated that by 2022, they want to be one of the top leagues in the world. They want to, battle La Liga, the Premier League, Italian Series A. They want to be one of those best leagues in the world, and they feel like they have to expand rapidly to do this.
I think that the expansion, I don't know, I feel like they are trying to expand a little too quickly, but at the same time, it is good. It'll be good for the league because they get more notice. They're in more cities, and so more games. And the more games you have, the more, the more people are going to see it. The more, more frequent things are happening, the more they're going to be on ESPN and different sports shows. And so the more that's going on is good for the league, but to be one of the top leagues in the world, they're going to have to improve a lot more talent-wise, and I think that's what's really going to keep them from being a top league in the world, at least for right now, because the top players from the U.S. I mean, they have to get natural-born U.S. the top players. All of the top players have to play in the MLS if the MLS wants to compete. But with Pulisic and other, and even Tim Howard, top players playing in other parts of the world in other leagues, then they have to be able to keep those players. And if we can't keep those players, why would the MLS be able to get the top European and South African teams and stuff like that? So, and their players, and so it'd be, I don't feel like until they are able to get the top players to stay in the US, they're not really going to be able to compete.
Interesting points, everyone. The way I see it, expansion, like Chase said, getting it in more cities, there's going to be more exposure to it. But at the same time, I think the important thing is getting TV deals, like the big TV deals that the NBA signs, getting these games televised to a broader audience. And so I think in order for expansion to be worth it, they need to get people to actually watch the TV games. And I don't know where the MLS is as far as televised games. Andrew, do you have those
I can
numbers?
see if I can find it real quick.
Okay.
But yeah, I see where you're coming from, Brandon. I mean, TV deals are huge, and the bigger TV deal that they have, the more important it is, the more easy it is, I guess, to be able to get to those different audiences and be able to broadcast to more people, and that's always been important. I mean, I feel like we see more international, especially from like the Premier League and La Liga and stuff like that, where more than we do MLS, because I feel like those games are, people want to watch those games more because they have the international stars like Messi and Ronaldo. So those games are going to be more interesting, and people are going to want to watch them more than MLS because they have more star power.
Yep, so looking at the ratings, just real quick, Google search tells me the MLS ratings were down 8% compared to last season. But that was mostly due to the Spanish show, or the Spanish network Univision. It was down a little bit on there, but as far as Fox and ESPN, they're up to about 318,000 viewers. So they're not doing poorly. And on that same note, interestingly enough, the MLS received a $4 billion TV deal offer from an international company that said, we will televise MLS for $4 billion. But MLS turned it down strictly because in the contract they said they would have to adopt promotion and relegation, which, for anybody who might not know what that is, top teams like La Liga and the Bundesliga, anywhere in the EPL, the Premier League, the top 3 teams from the second bracket. So it would be compared to like a D-League team. The top 3 teams every year are promoted into the top tier. And the bottom 3 teams from the top tier are relegated or demoted down to the next tier. And so the United States and MLS does not want to adopt promotion relegation. They're against it. And so that's one reason that they turned down a $4 billion TV deal, because for them, they want one major league, and then that's basically it. They don't want to have to worry about any of the TV deals or anything between promotion and relegation. And also the big deal with it was their current contract with ESPN, Fox, Univision goes through 2022. And so they actually shouldn't have even been offered anything, because they shouldn't be considering any TV deal until 2022. But it's interesting to me that promotion relegation is such a big deal internationally. That's what's going to be the difference to me. If they want to be that top league, they're going to have to do promotion relegation, because that's what the top teams in the world do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it adds.
They can't Americanize it and
definitely.
Just say we'll have a playoffs and everybody in the world's going to like it, because that's not how soccer's played in the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm. I think that adds a different. The promotion relegation adds a different competitive. It adds more to the games. I feel like it adds more to the regular season, and adds more to even the championships and stuff like that, where teams that aren't necessarily good have to go down, and they have to play well if they want to stay in the major leagues. And so I think that could really help. I think that would help with the competitive nature of it and to be a top league. And I think that they're just trying too hard to please people, which, I mean, the European leagues have throughout, like the Premier League probably has through all of their levels 60 or 70 teams. And so they're able to promote and relegate because they have such good teams all through. And, the top teams always stay because they're always the top teams. But those bottom teams have to be competitive, have to play harder, because they're at the risk of getting relegated. And so I feel like that adds a different competitive advantage to those European and other leagues that the MLS, doesn't add, and that they feel like they want to be too much like the NFL and the NBA and stuff like that, instead of actually, following a soccer path, trying to be more like soccer instead of trying to be more like USA leagues.
That's true. It's like exactly what you said. Every game matters in promotion relegation. If you're in the bottom of the table, you're going to fight for every point, because in the EPL, the Premier League, if you get relegated from the top tier to the Champions League, the next tier, you lose TV deals the next year. Mm-hmm. So you lose money as a club. So every game is important. It eliminates tanking, because there is no advantage to tanking. Mm-hmm. So it makes the manager come with a full team almost every time, makes them fight every game. And I do think that it's more entertaining, because if you lose, you don't just lose a game. Your coach might not just be fired, but your team could lose, potentially millions of dollars, depending on how long you stay in the lower league.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know about this, but does the MLS have a draft?
Yes, the MLS has a super draft where they draft players out of college. And so that would be something that would have to be addressed if they did promotion relegation. Mm-hmm. Jordan Morris, I believe, was a number 1 pick in the super draft.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, they. I don't think any of the European leagues have drafts, do they?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
They promote from their academies.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.